Hi, everybody. This is Arkady Frekhtman. I'm a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and today we are talking about a case analysis in a trucking crash that resulted in a multi-million-dollar settlement. What happens when a trucking company puts their own profits over people's safety? Really, it's a story of grit, strategy, and fighting back when the odds are stacked against you. They were in a very tough venue, very tough judge, very tough court. They were up against a formidable opponent. So a lot of people would have backed down, maybe settled the case, but they toughed it out and they got an amazing result. Basically, it's important to understand how these trucking cases are handled, and it's really important to hire a truck accident specialist as opposed to just the lawyer that handles car accidents, because a lawyer that just handles car accidents is not going to be able to do these trucking cases. They're a completely different animal. And basically here, what do you have? You have a multi-million-dollar victory. You have shocking negligence that they were able to uncover, and you have a real courtroom drama. And so the facts are that the crash happened when a 69-year-old client, he actually ended up rear-ending a tractor trailer. But the tractor trailer was parked illegally in a gore that was along I-40, a highway, near Needles, California, which is like near the desert. And so this gore area, I believe it was between an on-ramp and a highway, and it was only like 10 feet from the freeway in a shoulder. And the truck was parked there, not because of an emergency, but it was just like the guy was resting there. He was going to stay there for, I think, 10 hours. And as you'll see, that's not allowed according to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act and the Code of Federal Regulations. We'll get into that. But so the clients, there were two people in the car. They had a medical emergency, and that's why they pulled over. But as they were pulling over, they were going above the speed limit, and they had an electronic control module, kind of like a black box, in the car that pulled over and rear-ended the truck. And that electronic control module showed that they were going above the speed limit when they were pulling over. And so the injuries were that one of the passengers actually suffered, they don't really get into the injuries, they just say kind of minor injuries. But the other person, the driver, was actually trapped in the vehicle for 2 hours and suffered multiple fractures as well as a traumatic brain injury. Now, here are the challenges. The challenges with a case like this, well, obviously, just using your common sense, one of the challenges is the person, rear-ended the truck. So they're going to say it was his fault. Now, the other challenge is that the California Highway Patrol, the police, they actually blamed the client for speeding. And they said that the truck being parked there was that's just like an association. That's not why it happened, but that's just like, it was associated with the accident, but it's not why the accident happened. And the client also had pre-existing medical conditions and delayed treatment, and that complicated the case. And there was a federal judge who's well known for not liking personal injury cases. And so the case had to be tried in federal court. So basically, the case was against a well-known tractor trailer company, and the plaintiffs argued that they knowingly ignored safety rules and allowed dangerous practices like parking in prohibited areas like the shoulder to happen. And in fact, they researched their Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act, statistics, and they found that 91% unsafe driving rating, and there were a lot of damning documents from a safety audit. And you have to understand that under 49 CFR section 392.22, a commercial motor vehicle driver is required to take specific actions when stopping, parking, or leaving a vehicle unattended on a highway. And parking on a shoulder or freeway of an interstate is prohibited unless it is an emergency or the vehicle is disabled. And it's only permitted if the vehicle is disabled or an emergency. And if there is an emergency, within 10 minutes, you have to put up like triangles, flares, and warning devices, right? And none of this was done. So that's basically the argument that the plaintiff had. And so they had to overcome a bias against plaintiffs with pre-existing conditions, and they had to demonstrate that everyone deserves justice regardless of their medical history. And the other important factor was that they had to hold the corporation accountable by highlighting the importance of discovery to expose corporate negligence and by ensuring that these safety violations do not go unnoticed. So they did, a very good job in discovery. Part of their trial strategy and how they built this case was uncovering 26,000 pages of federal motor carrier Safety Act documents, including these safety audits that were really bad for the trucking company. And they also took a deposition of a 30B6 corporate representative. And the way that works is you ask questions to the corporate representative after noticing them about the topics or matters of examination. And then what that corporate representative says is the official position of the tractor trailer company. And so when they did that deposition, they revealed a lot of lies and a lot of negligence. And then they had to have an accident reconstructionist, a traffic engineer, to prove that illegal parking caused the crash. They worked with neurologists, life care planners, and damages experts to detail the long-term impact on the client's health and finances. And there were a lot of challenges that they had to navigate, including overcoming strict discovery deadlines. Like this federal judge only allowed 4 months for discovery. And he also said that the entire trial was going to be like 6 hours each side for everything, right? Openings, closings, witnesses. So that's very hard to get everything in. And he was actually using one of those like chess clocks to count the time to the second. And that's very hard to do in a case like this with so much information and to show it. And so basically the settlement was for 3.4 million total. And it was 2.85 million for the driver who had the serious brain injury and 595,000 for the passenger. And it was settled at a mandatory settlement conference. And so, yeah, I think it's just important to really understand that cases like this are an uphill battle. Like it really depends on the attorney handling the case, because these two attorneys that handled this case were both trucking attorneys and trucking specialists, and I believe they're members of the American Truck Accident Attorneys, which is a group that I'm in. Actually, that's how I found out about it, because they posted this win on that website. But you see, like if this was in the hands of just a regular car crash attorney, they would have just settled this case for like 50,000, or they wouldn't have been able to do all this. This was a real uphill battle. And, it's just important to understand that and all of the different factors that went into this. And, they fought on motions in limine, and they actually won on the motion in limine in federal court. And they had a lot of evidence about these safety practices. It's a little bit more that gets into a lot more than this video, but I could maybe do another video about that if I do a deeper dive into the exact safety practices. But it sounds like this company knew that their drivers were being unsafe, and they just allowed it to happen. They basically did nothing to supervise the drivers, and the company even ratified the driver's choice to park his truck for a 10-hour rest break in a gore, which is between an on-ramp and a freeway, and just 10 feet from the freeway itself at night in the desert, which is against the rule that we talked about. So that was the main thing. And yeah, so I thought that was a good settlement considering where they were. Now, if this was in state court and they had more of a fair judge, the case might have been even bigger. So I hope this was helpful. Let us know what questions you have, and we are here for you. Our goal is helping serious injury victims and families. Okay, bye-bye, everyone.